The Cold War birthed our modern obsession with spies. Did you know the CIA actually funded certain Hollywood productions to shape public opinion? While James Bond wouldn't appear until 1962, the 1940s and 1950s gave us the spy thriller blueprint that still influences everything from Jason Bourne to Mission Impossible. Let's dive into the absolute best of this defining decade. Number 24. Berlin Express, 1948. Berlin Express kicks off our list as the raw prototype for every Cold War thriller that followed. Shot on location in the bombed-out ruins of post-war Frankfurt and Berlin, this Jacques Tourneur masterpiece captures a devastated Europe where nobody's loyalties can be trusted. The film follows an international group of passengers on a train to Berlin, including an American agricultural expert played by Robert Ryan, who gets caught in an assassination plot. What makes this film revolutionary is that it was literally filmed in the rubble of defeated Nazi Germany, with real displaced persons as extras. The film even required special military permission to shoot in the Soviet occupation zone. Critics initially dismissed it as just another B-movie, but it's now considered visionary for predicting the ideological divisions that would define the next 4 decades. Director Tourneur later confessed he had to smuggle certain footage past military censors who were concerned the film showed too much of actual military installations. As the first American film shot in Germany after World War II, Berlin Express gives us a chilling glimpse of the exact moment when one global conflict morphed into another. Number 23. Night People, 1954. Gregory Peck delivers one of his most underrated performances in Night People, playing an American intelligence officer navigating the treacherous streets of Berlin. When an American soldier is kidnapped by Soviet agents, Peck's Colonel Van Dyke must untangle a web of double crosses to get him back. The film's brilliant use of cinemascope and Technicolor transforms Berlin into a neon-lit maze of shadows and danger. Director Nunnally Johnson insisted on filming scenes multiple times with different endings, never telling the actors which version would be used, creating genuine tension even among the cast. Behind the scenes, the production faced constant harassment from East German authorities who attempted to disrupt filming by shining bright lights across the border. Night People was one of the first Hollywood films to directly address the practice of trading political prisoners. Something both superpowers officially denied happened. When the film premiered, 3 former intelligence officers anonymously confirmed to the New York Times that the depicted prisoner swaps were embarrassingly accurate, prompting a minor diplomatic incident. Number 22. 5 Steps to Danger, 1957. This criminally overlooked gem stars Sterling Hayden as a man who picks up a mysterious hitchhiker, Ruth Roman, only to be dragged into a dangerous espionage plot involving microfilm hidden in a bar of soap. Director Henry S. Kessler turned the film's modest budget into an advantage, creating a claustrophobic atmosphere where danger lurks in everyday places. What makes 5 Steps to Danger stand out is how it portrays ordinary Americans as pawns in the larger Cold War chess game. There's a jaw-dropping scene where Hayden's character, armed with nothing but a tire iron, faces off against a trained Soviet assassin in a quiet motel room, creating one of the most realistic and brutal fight scenes of the decade. The film caused controversy upon release for suggesting American intelligence agencies sometimes use the same ruthless methods as their Soviet counterparts. FBI Director J. Edgar Hoover allegedly demanded cuts to certain scenes, though producer Arthur Gardner always denied these claims. The film's original ending, where both American and Soviet agents are shown equally willing to sacrifice innocent lives, was changed after preview audiences found it too disturbing. Number 21. Port of Hell, 1954. Port of Hell delivers a nerve-shredding premise. A Soviet nuclear bomb has been smuggled into Los Angeles harbor aboard a merchant ship. Harbor Master Dane Clark has just hours to locate it before Southern California becomes ground zero for World War III. Director Harold Schuster ingeniously builds tension by filming in the actual working ports of Long Beach, with real longshoremen and sailors as extras who had no idea they were in a movie about nuclear terrorism. There's a breathtaking underwater sequence where Clark searches the hull of a suspected ship that was filmed without permits because the studio couldn't afford them. The film triggered a minor security panic when military officials questioned how the filmmakers knew so many accurate details about harbor security protocols. Writer Jesse Lasky Jr. was actually called to testify before a congressional committee about his research methods. Though largely forgotten today, Port of Hell influenced countless ticking time bomb thrillers and was one of the first films to realistically portray the terrifying vulnerability of America's ports to nuclear smuggling. Number 20. Decision Before Dawn, 1951. This Oscar-nominated masterpiece follows a German POW recruited by American intelligence to spy on his own country in the final days of World War II. Though technically set during WO2, Decision Before Dawn is pure Cold War in its themes and style, examining the moral ambiguity of espionage. Director Anatol Litvak insisted on shooting on location in bombed-out German cities, giving the film a documentary-like realism that shocked audiences. The cast included actual former German soldiers and real refugees, creating an authenticity rarely seen in Hollywood productions. Star Oscar Werner, himself a wartime deserter from the German army, suffered a breakdown during filming when required to wear a German uniform again. The film's unflinching portrayal of Allied intelligence methods proved controversial, with several military advisors resigning from the production in protest. The Pentagon initially refused cooperation until 20th Century Fox agreed to certain script changes. Despite this, Decision Before Dawn remains one of the most honest portrayals of the ethical compromises required in intelligence work, establishing themes that would define the spy genre for decades. Number 19. The Thief, 1952. The Thief revolutionized spy thrillers with its daring experimental approach, a film without a single word of dialogue. Ray Milland plays a nuclear physicist passing secrets to Soviet agents, and his mounting guilt and paranoia are conveyed entirely through visuals and music. Director Russell Rouse meticulously storyboarded every shot, creating a film that's essentially an 85-minute silent movie made in the sound era. The famous sequence where Milland photographically reduces classified documents using a miniature camera was so accurate that the FBI visited the set to find out how the filmmakers knew such technical details. Producer Clarence Green later admitted they simply guessed based on newspaper reports. Critics were divided, with some calling it a gimmick and others hailing it as revolutionary. What's remarkable is how clearly the film communicates complex espionage procedures without a word being spoken. The final sequence, where Milland attempts to escape across the Queensboro Bridge while being pursued, influenced countless chase scenes, including The French Connection. The film's experimental nature makes it feel modern even today, showing how visual storytelling transcends era. Number 18. Above and Beyond, 1952. Robert Taylor stars in this harrowing true story of Colonel Paul Tibbets, the man who piloted the Enola Gay to drop the atomic bomb on Hiroshima. Though set during World War II, Above and Beyond was made as a direct response to Soviet nuclear tests and functions as a Cold War morality tale. The film walks a treacherous tightrope, showing both the psychological toll on the men involved and justifying the bombing as necessary. Director Melvin Frank secured unprecedented access to actual B-29 bombers and military personnel, creating aviation sequences of stunning authenticity. The bombing sequence itself, showing the mushroom cloud from the air, was created using classified footage that required special government clearance. Behind the scenes, the production was closely monitored by military officials concerned about revealing nuclear secrets. Several scenes were cut, including one showing details of the bomb's detonation mechanism. Eleanor Tibbets, the real-life wife of Paul Tibbets, threatened to sue MGM over her portrayal, resulting in last-minute edits. Above and Beyond serves as a fascinating historical document, showing how Hollywood processed the new nuclear reality at the height of Cold War tensions. Number 17. Pickup on South Street, 1953. Samuel Fuller's gritty noir masterpiece Pickup on South Street follows small-time pickpocket Skip McCoy, who unknowingly lifts a wallet containing microfilm bound for Soviet agents. Fuller's background as a crime reporter gives the film its raw, street-level authenticity. The film caused a political firestorm upon release, with FBI Director J. Edgar Hoover personally objecting to the portrayal of a criminal as a patriotic hero and demanding changes. Fuller refused, resulting in the FBI withdrawing cooperation. The iconic subway pickpocketing sequence was so realistic that New York City police departments reportedly used it in training films to show officers how professional pickpockets operate. Richard Widmark's portrayal of Skip McCoy as an amoral opportunist who couldn't care less about the Cold War was revolutionary for the time. When he delivers the famous line, "Are you waving the flag at me?" it represented a seismic shift in how Hollywood portrayed American patriotism. Jean Peters, who plays the unwitting courier, later married Howard Hughes, who became so jealously protective of her that he bought every print of this film he could find to prevent people from seeing her in it. Number 16. I Was a Communist for the FBI, 1951. Based on a true story, this paranoid thriller follows Matt Kvedik, a factory worker who spent 9 years undercover in the American Communist Party, reporting to the FBI. Frank Lovejoy plays Kvedik, with a brooding intensity that captures the psychological toll of living a double life. Director Gordon Douglas shoots Pittsburgh's industrial landscape like an alien world, with smoke and steam creating a constant sense of danger and concealment. The film's most shocking sequence shows communist leaders living in luxury while ordering their working-class followers to start labor riots, a scene so controversial that several theaters refused to show it. The real Matt Kvedik was a consultant on the film, but was removed from set after repeatedly attempting to rewrite scenes to make himself appear more heroic. The film's release coincided with the HUAC hearings, and several actors and crew members were questioned about their political affiliations during production. Though heavily propagandistic by today's standards, I Was a Communist for the FBI provides fascinating insight into the height of Red Scare hysteria and influenced countless undercover agent thrillers that followed. Number 15. Five Fingers, 1952. James Mason delivers a mesmerizing performance in Five Fingers as Cicero, a valet at the British Embassy in Turkey who sells top-secret documents to the Germans during World War II. Though set during World War II, the film was made as a direct commentary on contemporary Soviet espionage operations. Based on the true story of Ilyesa Bazna, director Joseph L. Mankiewicz insisted on filming on location in actual Turkish government buildings, creating an unprecedented level of authenticity. The real intelligence documents shown in the film were created by actual British intelligence officers as consultants, with deliberately planted errors to avoid revealing genuine, classified information. The film caused diplomatic tensions upon release, with the Turkish government objecting to their portrayal as a hotbed of espionage. The real-life spy, still living in Turkey at the time, threatened legal action, forcing 20th Century Fox to issue a disclaimer. Mason's portrayal of a spy, motivated purely by money rather than ideology, was groundbreaking, challenging the prevailing narrative that espionage was primarily ideological. His character became the template for countless cynical spy protagonists in later decades. Number 14. The Man Who Never Was, 1956. This mind-blowing true story recounts Operation Mincemeat, one of the most audacious deception operations of World War II. British intelligence obtained a corpse, created a false identity as a military officer, planted fake invasion plans on the body, and let it wash ashore in Spain for Nazi agents to find. Director Ronald Neame worked directly with Ewan Montague, the intelligence officer who masterminded the real operation, creating scenes of extraordinary accuracy. The film includes actual footage of the fake documents that fooled Hitler's high command. The identity of the corpse used in the real operation remained classified until 1996, making the film's portrayal deliberately vague on certain details. The Man Who Never Was sparked a renewed interest in wartime intelligence operations and reportedly influenced actual Cold War deception tactics. Soviet officials were sufficiently concerned about the film's revelations that they ordered their agents to confirm whether similar operations were being conducted against them. Though technically a World War II film, it functions perfectly as a Cold War thriller by demonstrating the power of intelligence over military might, a central theme of the entire Cold War era. Number 13. House on 92nd Street, 1945. Though released just as World War II ended, House on 92nd Street established the template for Cold War spy thrillers with its documentary-style realism and focus on counterintelligence operations on American soil. The film follows FBI agents infiltrating a Nazi spy ring operating from a New York townhouse. Producer Louis de Rochemont pioneered a semi-documentary style, filming in actual locations where FBI operations had occurred and using real FBI agents as extras. J. Edgar Hoover was so impressed with the script that he personally allowed filming in FBI headquarters and provided access to actual surveillance equipment. The film's groundbreaking portrayal of technological surveillance, including hidden microphones and cameras, introduced audiences to tactics that would define the Cold War espionage era. House on 92nd Street established many conventions of the spy genre, including the operations room with maps and photos, surveillance montages, and the briefing scene where agents learn their mission. Though ostensibly about Nazi spies, the film was released just as concerns about Soviet espionage were growing, and its techniques and imagery would be repurposed for countless Cold War thrillers throughout the 1950s. Number 12. State Secret, 1950. State Secret stars Douglas Fairbanks Jr. as an American surgeon who discovers a terrible truth while operating on the dictator of a fictional Eastern European country. When he realizes the dictator has died on his operating table and the regime intends to use a double, he becomes a fugitive behind the Iron Curtain. Director Sidney Gilliat brilliantly uses the bombed-out landscapes of post-war Europe to create a convincing totalitarian state. The film's most harrowing sequence shows Fairbanks and love interest Glynis Johns attempting to escape during a ballet performance, using the music to mask their movements in a scene that directly influenced The Man Who Knew Too Much and countless later thrillers. The film's unflinching portrayal of a Soviet-style police state was so convincing that it was banned in several Eastern Bloc countries. The real political impact came from its portrayal of ordinary citizens secretly resisting the regime, which contradicted Soviet propaganda claiming universal popular support. When shown in West Berlin, the film reportedly caused several East German officials to request asylum, prompting East German authorities to specifically warn border guards about the film's dangerous influence. Number 11. Tokyo File 212, 1951. Tokyo File 212 holds the distinction of being the first American feature film shot entirely in Japan during the U.S. occupation. This groundbreaking thriller follows an American intelligence agent investigating communist infiltration in post-war Japan, dealing with themes of divided loyalties in occupied territories. Director Dorrell McGowan worked with actual U.S. counterintelligence corps officers as technical advisors, giving the film unprecedented authenticity. The production faced enormous challenges, including anti-American protests at filming locations and the need for military protection during certain scenes. Lead actor Florence Marley received death threats for portraying a Japanese woman sympathetic to Americans. The film's portrayal of continuing communist influence in occupied Japan caused diplomatic tension, with Japanese officials objecting to scenes suggesting widespread communist sympathy. The U.S. State Department eventually required several cuts before approving the film for release. Despite these controversies, Tokyo File 212 provided Western audiences their first real glimpse of post-war Japan and established the Far East as a crucial setting for Cold War espionage fiction. Number 10. Big Jim McClane, 1952. John Wayne trades his cowboy hat for a fedora in Big Jim McClane, playing a HUAC investigator hunting communist agents in Hawaii. Though unabashedly propagandistic, the film provides a fascinating time capsule of peak McCarthy-era paranoia, wrapped in an entertaining thriller package. Director Edward Ludwig staged several sequences as quasi-documentaries, using real locations and actual government officials playing themselves. The film's most controversial aspect was its portrayal of HUAC as heroic defenders of democracy rather than the witch hunters depicted in later films. Wayne's production company insisted on script approval from the FBI, leading to several revisions to ensure the portrayal of investigative techniques was appropriately vague. Upon release, the film faced protests from civil liberties groups but was endorsed by several government officials. Notably, Wayne himself testified before HUAC the same year, making this film a direct extension of his personal politics. Though critically panned today for its heavy-handed politics, Big Jim McClane perfectly captures the fever pitch of anti-communist sentiment that defined early Cold War America and influenced public perception of intelligence work. Number 9. Night Train to Munich, 1940. Though technically made during World War II, Night Train to Munich anticipates Cold War spy thrillers with uncanny prescience. The film follows British agent Gus Bennett attempting to rescue a Czech scientist from the Nazis, culminating in a thrilling cable car sequence in the Swiss Alps. Director Carol Reed creates a perfect balance of tension and wit, establishing the template for sophisticated European-set espionage films. The film's remarkable achievement is how it predicted the coming Cold War's focus on scientific intelligence, with both sides desperately trying to acquire technical experts. The fictional Czechoslovakian armor-plating process at the center of the plot bears striking similarities to later real-life defections of scientists with nuclear knowledge. Night Train to Munich was actually banned in the United States until 1941 due to the country's neutrality policy and wasn't widely seen until after the war, where it found a new audience primed for Cold War tensions. The film directly influenced later train-set thrillers including The Spy Who Came In From the Cold and established the romantic spy couple dynamic that would become a staple of the genre. Number 8. The Man on the Eiffel Tower, 1949. This visually stunning thriller, shot entirely in Paris, follows a police inspector tracking a murderer through post-war Paris. Though technically a murder mystery, the film employs the visual language and themes that would define Cold War thrillers. Director Burgess Meredith, who also stars, insisted on shooting in Ansco color, a rare film stock that creates a distinctive, slightly unreal look perfect for the psychological thriller. The climactic chase sequence on the actual Eiffel Tower was filmed without safety equipment, with star Charles Laughton genuinely terrified during shooting. The French government initially refused permission to film on the national landmark until stars Laughton and Franchot Tone personally appealed to the culture minister. The film's themes of post-war moral ambiguity and the search for hidden enemies perfectly captured the emerging Cold War mentality. Its portrayal of Paris as a city of secrets and danger established the European capital as an essential setting for spy thrillers. Though a commercial failure upon release, The Man on the Eiffel Tower has been recognized as visually innovative, with Martin Scorsese citing it as an influence on his use of color in Taxi Driver. Number 7. Diplomatic Courier, 1952. Tyrone Power stars as diplomatic courier Mike Kells, tasked with retrieving a top-secret document from behind the Iron Curtain. When his contact is killed before passing him the information, Kells becomes entangled in a deadly game of cat and mouse in Trieste and Salzburg. Director Henry Hathaway insisted on shooting on location in actual Cold War hotspots, including the border between Italy and Yugoslavia, where armed confrontations were still occurring. The film's most impressive sequence follows a high-speed chase along the actual border, with real border guards visible in some shots. Patricia Neal, who plays a possible Soviet agent, later revealed that several actual intelligence officers approached her during filming, assuming the production was cover for real operations. Diplomatic Courier was one of the first Hollywood films to accurately portray the use of diplomatic pouches for intelligence transport, a practice both sides officially denied. The State Department expressed concern about certain scenes showing security procedures, leading to several cuts. The film's unflinching portrayal of Trieste as a city of shifting loyalties and constant surveillance provided Western audiences with their first real glimpse of life in a Cold War border zone. Number 6. The 49th Man, 1953. This nail-biting thriller follows a government agent racing to stop a Soviet plot to smuggle atomic bomb components into the United States piece by piece. Director Fred F. Sears creates unbearable tension as agents realize they've already intercepted 48 components, with one final piece still missing. The film's documentary-style opening, featuring actual footage of nuclear tests, created such a convincing atmosphere that some viewers believed they were watching a government warning. The script was written with input from active security officials, resulting in certain details being deliberately altered to avoid revealing actual counter-espionage methods. Star John Ireland later claimed he was approached by FBI agents curious about his research for the role. The 49th Man caused considerable anxiety upon release for suggesting America was vulnerable to nuclear infiltration. Several congressional representatives actually cited the film during debates on increasing security funding. Though modestly budgeted, the film's premise of terrorists assembling a weapon on American soil proved disturbingly prescient and influenced countless later thrillers, including The Sum of All Fears and 24. Number 5. Foreign Intrigue, 1956. Robert Mitchum stars in this stylish European thriller as press agent Dave Bishop, investigating the mysterious past of his recently deceased employer. As he travels across Europe, he discovers his boss was involved in blackmailing former Nazi collaborators who now hold powerful positions. Director Sheldon Reynolds, who created the popular TV series of the same name, filmed in actual European locations rarely seen by American audiences, including stunning sequences in Stockholm, Vienna, and Paris. The film's innovative use of color and architecture creates a visual feast that directly influenced the James Bond films. Reynolds secured permission to film in locations normally closed to Westerners by claiming to be making a documentary. Foreign Intrigue was one of the first films to explore the morally ambiguous cleanup operations after World War II, where former enemies were recruited for Cold War intelligence work. Several scenes were cut after State Department officials worried they too accurately portrayed actual operations. The film's portrayal of American intelligence operating with minimal oversight in Europe caused sufficient concern that the CIA reportedly monitored audience reactions at test screenings. Number 4. The Third Man, 1949. Though set in the immediate aftermath of World War II, Carol Reed's masterpiece, The Third Man, perfectly captures the moral ambiguity and shadowy allegiances that would define the Cold War era. Joseph Cotten plays Holly Martins, an American pulp novelist who arrives in divided Vienna to find his friend Harry Lime has died under mysterious circumstances. The film's most revolutionary aspect is its use of actual occupied Vienna as a character itself, with the four-power division of the city creating a perfect metaphor for the emerging Cold War. Reed insisted on shooting at night in the ruins and sewers of Vienna, capturing the disorientation of a Europe caught between East and West. The famous Ferris wheel scene, where Wells delivers his cuckoo clock speech, was largely improvised by Wells himself. Graham Greene's script was so accurate in its portrayal of black market operations that British intelligence questioned him about his sources. The film's unforgettable zither score by Anton Karas was discovered by chance when Reed heard him playing in a wine garden. Though technically released in 1949, The Third Man established visual and thematic elements that would define Cold War thrillers throughout the 1950s and beyond. Number 3. North by Northwest, 1959. Alfred Hitchcock's espionage masterpiece follows advertising executive Roger Thornhill, who is mistaken for a government agent and pursued across America by foreign spies led by the elegant Philip Van Damme. Though often played for suspenseful comedy, the film perfectly captures Cold War paranoia. The film's genius lies in never explicitly identifying the villains as Soviets, allowing for plausible deniability while making their identity obvious to Cold War audiences. Hitchcock's set pieces, including the famous crop duster sequence and Mount Rushmore climax, redefined action filmmaking. The director wanted to film a scene where Grant hides inside Lincoln's nose on Mount Rushmore, but the National Park Service refused permission, considering it disrespectful. North by Northwest brilliantly subverted Cold War spy films by making its protagonist an ordinary civilian rather than a trained agent, establishing the wrong man thriller that would influence everything from The Bourne Identity to Enemy of the State. The film's portrayal of the CIA was so unflattering that several government officials complained, particularly about scenes suggesting they would willingly sacrifice an innocent civilian. Despite this controversy, or perhaps because of it, North by Northwest remains the definitive American spy thriller of the 1950s. Number 2. The Quiet American, 1958. Joseph L. Mankiewicz's adaptation of Graham Greene's controversial novel stars Audie Murphy as Alden Pyle, a seemingly idealistic American aid worker in 1950s Vietnam, and Michael Redgrave as British journalist Thomas Fowler, who becomes suspicious of Pyle's true activities. Their rivalry over a Vietnamese woman becomes a perfect metaphor for the competing Cold War ideologies fighting for control of Southeast Asia. Mankiewicz filmed on location in Saigon against the studio's wishes, capturing authentic street scenes in a Vietnam still under French colonial rule, but teetering toward American intervention. The film's most chilling sequence shows the aftermath of a terrorist bombing in a crowded plaza that Fowler realizes was orchestrated by American intelligence to be blamed on communists. A scene so controversial that the CIA reportedly pressured MGM to alter it, claiming it revealed actual operations. Greene himself disowned the film for softening his anti-American stance, calling it propaganda for America. The original novel was so critical of early American involvement in Vietnam that it was considered un-American by many critics. The film's prophetic quality is haunting, made years before major U.S. military involvement in Vietnam. It perfectly predicts the tragic consequences of idealistic intervention. Though initially a commercial failure, The Quiet American is now recognized as one of the most prescient Cold War films ever made, exposing the proxy wars and third-way manipulation that would characterize global intelligence operations for decades. Number 1. Night and the City, 1950. Jules Dassin's noir masterpiece follows small-time hustler Harry Fabian, Richard Widmark, through the criminal underworld of London as he desperately tries to become a wrestling promoter. Though not explicitly about espionage, Night in the City captures the paranoia, betrayal, and moral ambiguity that would define Cold War thrillers. Dassin, who was fleeing Hollywood blacklisting, infuses the film with a palpable sense of persecution and desperation. The nightmarish chase sequence through bombed-out London perfectly visualizes the psychological landscape of the early Cold War. Dassin was actually named as a communist during HUAC hearings while shooting in London, forcing him to complete the film under enormous pressure, knowing he would soon be unemployable in America. The film's unflinching portrayal of a man destroyed by forces beyond his control resonated powerfully with audiences living under the shadow of nuclear annihilation. Widmark's performance as a man, constantly looking over his shoulder, became the template for countless spy protagonists. Though technically a noir crime thriller, Night and the City crystallized the visual language and psychological themes that would define Cold War espionage films throughout the 1950s and beyond, earning it the top spot on our list. Which Cold War thriller do you think deserves more recognition today? The spy films of this era didn't just entertain. They shaped how Americans understood the conflict with the Soviet Union, sometimes more powerfully than news reports. Did Hollywood make us more paranoid? Or were these filmmakers exposing genuine threats? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe for more deep dives into cinema history.